The link should be up in a minute.
Participants, if you could label your name as the name that you signed up in the Google form, that would be great, just so we can check you off for attendance to make sure you're here.
So here is the link I pasted in the group chat. That's the link for our live YouTube. I'm going to post that in OSA's Facebook page, so folks can join in. Right, good afternoon, everyone. We will be starting shortly this career fair going to be presented by OSA Youth. I am Utkal Naik. I'm the treasurer of the Odisha Society of the Americas. Thank you everyone for joining us. Give us a couple minutes as we see that more folks are joining in. So in about 2 minutes, let's say about 5:05 Eastern time or 2:05 Pacific time, we can get kicked off. Okay. All right. This 5 or 6. So let's get started. Namaskar again. My name is Utkal Naik from OSA executive team. I'm very excited to see all our youths come together to put this career event. This is being done by our OSA youths outreach stream. And I will be passing the control over to them. They have a very amazing group of panelists here for presentation. So I'll not break the suspense there, and then we'll have a lot of engaging conversation. So I understand that we'll have a first the prepared presentation, and then followed up by focus group discussion. So please hold off your questions and then follow the instructions. I'll pass it on to Ria, who is going to introduce the topic and tell us the agenda. Thank you.
So before we start, I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's a great turn up and we're very excited to have this college and career fair. So first, we're going to start off with our college portion. You can't start off a job without learning how to get into college. So we have a guest speaker who is here to come here and talk to you about the process of entering college. So are you here?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Today we'll be having Adarsh Nanda help present about college. He's from Cary, Illinois, and is currently a senior at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, no, I can start off specifically. Thank you all for having me. It's awesome. Currently, given the situation, it's a unique times that we're in. But no, I'm excited to talk to you all. And so I'm currently a senior. So this is my last year in college. So I'll be graduating this upcoming May. I'm not sure if I'll have an actual graduation, but we'll see about that. But yeah, no, just to start off, of course, college is very crucial in the aspects in terms of what you want to do career-wise, and especially if you want to go into like business or engineering and where you want to work after college. You're not going to do a post-grad studies. You're not going to do any sort of master's or PhDs after college. So you're probably focused in on getting a job at a certain point, and usually that starts off by getting internships in college, and usually a lot of those internships will translate to full-time job offers. And that was the case for me, where I interned last summer at an investment bank, and then I got the return offer to go back full time. And so that's typically the process. But in terms of the college admissions process itself, I think my biggest recommendation is applying, I think, to as many colleges as possible, given your financial status, and if you can. And I would just kind of start it off with the range of safety schools. Those are schools, typically those will be like in-state public schools or things like that, that you think you have a very good shot at based on what stats you have. And then I would kind of have a list of target schools that you think that there's a good shot that you can get in. At the same time, you're not totally sure, but you'd be a good fit, and you think your stats are up there to get there. And then I'd have my reach schools, which are top schools that you think just in general are very competitive to get in. So I would cast a really wide net in general. And when you're applying to colleges, I would never just apply to one or two, but at the same time, I would still be ambitious and apply to certain ones, even if you don't think you have a shot. It's crazy how things work out. So I think that's the first step there, is to apply to as many colleges as possible. And I think the misconception a lot of students have is they think that I have a great standardized testing score and I have a great GPA, I'm going to get into the school I want. That's not the case. A lot of schools really care about a lot about what you write in your essays. Do you care about the school? Do you have a passion for the school? Are there any specific programs or research things or any sort of things that are offered at the school that makes you want to go there? And my biggest thing is in essays is if I can replace the school name with a different university. So let's say I'm applying to Michigan, but let's say if I can replace that name with Michigan State or Illinois, and the application still makes sense, that's a terrible essay. So I think the very first step is most colleges are going to ask you why that school, and make sure you do your research. There's a lot of things online, a lot of sources, a lot of websites where you can actually go online and see certain things that are provided. So what I did is I actually looked at specific programs that were offered. We have this entrepreneurship center where they provide funding as students to start your own business. I thought that was really cool, and that's something that I mentioned in my essays. So I think something like that is what's going to really drive you apart, is having a unique essay. So don't disregard the essay portion as something that it's just a 500-word essay. Just type it up and I'm done. There's especially for a lot of schools that care a lot about what you write and what you say, that's gonna hold you in high regard. So of course, the first things first is, of course, is doing well in school and standardized testing. I mean, that's a given. But the other component is, and I think a lot of people forget this component, is really really putting in the effort in those essays, and make sure you utilize your English teachers in your high schools. I had my papers edited by over 6 or 7 English teachers that I had throughout high school, and my friends, and they all gave me advice. So make sure you put in the proper time for that. And in terms of the actual admissions process, you have something that's called early action and early decision, and you have regular action. Now things are slightly different this year because of COVID, so I'm not sure. But for most of you, that's not going to be relevant in the future. But with early action, that means that you can apply to a school before November 1st. And typically that means that shows that you're interested. And many times that means you have a higher chance of getting into the school because you're applying early. Or you can apply regular decision, which is by January 1st, which means now you're in the normal pool. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're at a disadvantage, but it might be a little tougher to get in just in terms of percentage wise. And then you have something called early decision, which actually locks you in. And that's a riskier decision to make. What that means is that if you do early decision and apply by November 1st, that means you're locking yourself into the school. That means if you get accepted, you have to go to that school. Unless there's, others like extreme circumstances, you are locking yourselves and committing yourself to that school. But the advantage is that your chances of getting into the school is much higher because of the fact that the college knows that you're bound to go there if you accept the offer, or if you accept the application for the school. So those are the different types of application processes, but most schools are pretty standard where you will apply on the Common App, and that makes things easier because a lot of schools use the Common App website. And what that is that there's 2 or 3 questions that are provided every year, and you will write like a 650-word essay on the Common App, and that essay you can be used for any college that you apply to. So that makes things easier, but again, that makes your paper even more important. And typically colleges will have separate questions that you'll answer through the Common App, and you apply through the Common App. And typically if you apply early action, you'll hear back pretty early, the next month or so, or in 2 months. And if you apply early, or if you apply regular decision, you will hear back typically in March or April even at that point. So that's in general the college admissions process. And it gets tougher year by year. Just in general, there's always more students applying every year, but there's always the same number of spots. So the key thing also is that a lot of schools have different acceptance rates for different majors. So that's something you want to take a look at. Certain schools are very strong in certain areas, and because of that, those areas are harder to get into. So that's something that you probably want to just also look at too, are the programs, and take a look at what classes, because there's so many resources online, you can see what classes are offered, what opportunities are offered, and kind of use that to make your decision in terms of what colleges you want to go into. And the other component is what type of college are you looking at? So do you want to go to a big school, a smaller school, public school, private school, location? Do you want to stay in-state, close to parents? Are you scared about maybe traveling very far? So those are other things that all come into play when you're thinking about college specifically. But that's pretty much the admissions process. And I just want to make sure we have enough time for questions. I'll just kind of quickly go into kind of the college life a little bit and how it's structured. It's definitely very different from high school. So most colleges operate in a similar way. Now, certain schools don't have a semester system, they have a quarter system. So that's a little different. But most schools, for the most part, run the same type of semester system where you can take between 12 to 18 credit hours a semester. And a credit hour just means pretty much how long a class is. So if a class says it's 3 credit hours, that means typically it's 3 hours of class a week. If a class says it's 4 credit hours, it's 4 hours a week. So typically what that means is how long a class is, and that will base you on how many credits you get. And you will take somewhere between 12 to 18 credits. If you're a minor or if you're a double major, you'll be more in the higher end. But if not, you'll be in a lower end. And something I want to add on real quick about that is take a lot of AP classes. They help me a lot. And I know people have conflicting things on that, but in high school, take your AP classes because a lot of those can get transferred in and will place you out of those introductory classes in high school. Like if you want to go into medicine, it'll place you out of like the introductory physics classes or chemistry classes that you don't need to take, and puts you kind of in a higher position, and which means you can graduate earlier if you want to save money. So those are certain components that I would look at too. And that's why I highly recommend, whether if you're taking AP classes or IB classes in high school, take advantage of those, those can go a long way in helping you just save costs and tuition, but also put you in classes where you're actually learning new things. You're not starting off at the intro level with everyone else again. So that's my recommendation in terms of high school stuff. But going back to how college classes are structured, so you will take 12 to 18 credit hours. And typically the way it works is it's not like high school where it's like 50 minutes of class every day, Monday through Friday. It's typically like, if it's a 3-hour class, it'll be, at least for here in Michigan, it's typically like an hour and a half on Monday, an hour and a half on Wednesday, and that's it. So you only have classes 2 days a week. It's not all 5 days. If it's a 4-hour class, typically it'll be like an hour and a half of class on a Monday, hour and a half on Wednesday, and then on a Thursday or Friday, you go in for like a discussion section or a lab section for an hour. So the way it's structured is you have a lecture-based thing. So if you have a 4-credit class, 3 of those hours a week will be focused in on just a lecture. So a professor will lecture you on a slide deck, and you will be with a lot of people typically. And a lot of these lectures can be, one of the lectures I was in actually had like 500 people. So you're in these big auditorium halls. But then you have also a discussion section or a lab section if it's a science or math class, where that's separate. And then you will be in a class, in a much smaller class with about 15 to 20 people in general. And that's where you have the more personalized learning, and you can actually ask questions. Even if you're nervous about being in a large class and maybe if you're not learning something or you have questions you might be scared to ask in a large class, professors always host office hours, and so do graduate student instructors. So you will have those in the class, and they run separate office. So they have something called office hours. So you'll see their calendar on certain days of the week. They'll be free in their office for like 2 hours or 3 hours at a time, and you can go and ask your questions one-on-one. If you need any help on any sort of homework or projects or assignments, any questions on lectures, that's what I would recommend, is really utilizing that, those office hours. That's where you can get some of that more personalized stuff. But eventually, as you get older and as you progress being a sophomore and junior and senior in college, classes naturally get smaller. So as they get smaller, that's not a concern anymore. But typically, especially if you're pre-med or engineering, and even business too, a lot of the intro lectures are very large. So that might be a surprise. You're probably not used to sitting with 300 other people. That's the way it typically works in college. And the key thing is the difference, being in college, is you really need to be responsible. One thing is you're not at home with your parents, and you don't have a structured setting where you have class from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. a day. For me, for example, I'll give you my schedule. On Monday, I don't have a class until 1 o'clock. So I have class from 1 to 4, and then a class from like 7 to 8. So it's a very weird schedule. It's not a set structure. On Tuesdays, I actually have a class from 7 to 10 p.m. It's weird. And then on Wednesday, I have a class at 8:30 a.m. It's not structured, and you have a lot of time during your classes, between your classes. And I think what happens is a lot of college students, they just kind of waste that time because you're not continuously learning and being in class for the whole day. You have lots of periods of times where you're off, and a lot of times students waste those times. And what ends up happening is then they just end up studying late at night until 3 in the morning in the library, and that's not a healthy way to live, and it's probably not the best way to study or for exams in general. So my recommendation is always just, you really need to be on top of your game. Really just be responsible. It's all going to be on you during the day, like in between classes, while you're walking to classes, like try to get some work done, when you're in your house or your apartment, or if you're in a dorm, make sure you can kind of complete all that kind of stuff. So just really stay on top of it, because you can decide what your schedule is, and you can decide what to do, right? You're not going to have your parents telling you what to do, and that might be nice, but at the same time, though, that puts a lot of the onus on you to be responsible. The other thing is I'll mention is extracurricular activities. There's tons of activities that are out there and that are available. I would highly, highly recommend to get involved. I'm in a couple of finance and investing clubs. We invest real money in the markets, and that helped me a lot to get my internships, because during my interviews, I could actually speak about my experiences on what I did. Like, it's one thing, like everyone does school, everyone studies, but that's not going to set you apart in an interview, right? You need to have a kind of a personality. You need to do something outside of just studying. They want to see who you are. So for me, I said I got action-based learning by actually investing real money in the markets, thousands of dollars through our club. I'm in a leadership position. Those are other experiences that you can talk about. And also do stuff that you love. I'm sure a lot of you love dancing, right? Like probably Bollywood dancing. There's a lot of dancing clubs on campus. Do things that you like, because at a certain time you're going to be stressed. If school picks up, it's a college, I think in general, it's just the way work goes, it's like a roller coaster. So typically there's not as many exams like there would be in high school, but they come in big chunks. So like around, so for example, if a semester goes from September to December, in the middle of October, all your exams and projects will be due at that one time. And then in December, all your final exams and projects will be at that time. But then in September, you think you're relaxing, there's not too much going on, but that's the time you should be proactive in terms of getting ahead with work, because a lot of these things kind of pile up on you right away. So that's another key thing, is that college is much more like a roller coaster, not like a stable kind of road like high school is. So that's a key thing to kind of take into account. So because of all that stress, make sure you get time to go exercise. Make sure you're also dining hall food. It's very easy to gain a lot of weight from dining hall food because it's like a buffet. It's all given out to you. You can just kind of go and eat what you want. And typically it's unhealthy food, a lot of fried food. So so that's one thing that's, I think you see with a lot of freshmen who have dining meal plans, is they just eat a lot of food, especially if you're on an unlimited plan. Because here at Michigan, everyone's unlimited if you're in the dining hall plan. So things like that, just don't overeat. But at the same time, make sure you get some time to walk outside, exercise, especially as your exams start picking up during the semesters. But yeah, no, but just get involved with extracurricular activities, things that are related to school and to your subject that you're pursuing, but also things that you're just interested in, even if it's the squirrel watching club. And that's something you can also join if you're interested in terms of college life. And then I just want to make sure I leave enough time for any questions. But I guess one last thing I'll touch upon is dorms in general, dorm life. So it's a very interesting way. And my dorm had a lot of students. I think we had over 1,000 students in my dorm, and we shared. I think we had 60 people sharing a bathroom. It's 8 bathroom stalls and 8 showers. So it's a very different life than being at home, and it's a lot more gross to deal with that. And you're also sharing. You're sharing kind of one room with someone. So make sure you find someone that you can get along with, roommates wise. That's what I always recommend. That's a lot of things I've seen with roommate issues, and that just complicates things if you're trying to study in your own room, but you have all this drama going on with friends. So that's one thing you kind of want to have figured out. But the great thing about dorms is that because like everyone's kind of together as freshmen and everyone comes from different backgrounds, you really get to meet a lot of people, and there's a lot of study areas, and you get to really study in a lot of lounges with a lot of your friends in dorms. So I think that's a really cool experience. So if you can, I would definitely at least live in a dorm your freshman year. If it's required, I know certain schools require it, certain schools don't. But Michigan doesn't, but pretty much I think about 98% of freshmen live in dorms, so almost everyone. So I would highly recommend living in a dorm in your freshman year, and then if you want to move to an apartment or a house after that, you can. But yeah, these are just some of the things I just wanted to touch upon in general about college. And I just wanted to leave it up for any questions that we have. I think it's what, 5:24 now.
Yeah, so does anyone have any questions for Adarsh?
I guess I could ask a question. Well, first of all, I just want to say that was like really informative. Thank you. But so I was wondering, if I don't take any business classes in high school, how hard would it be to maybe like major in business or like do business in college?
I'm glad you asked that question. I actually did not. I also did not take a single business class before going into college. I actually thought I wanted to do engineering for the longest period of time. So I took AP Physics, AP Chemistry, AP Biology. All that was useless for me because I never really took science classes in college. So I'm glad you asked that question. And I had no background coming in. But I think that's actually how it is for most business students. At least that's how it is at Michigan. Most students don't, and just in general, high school doesn't really emphasize business education, and that's not something. It's typically not, even at the undergrad level. A lot of schools don't even offer business. If you look at a lot of Ivy League schools, they don't have business education. There's actually a lot of controversy that people think that business should not be taught at this level. It's more of a master's MBA type of thing. You don't study business at the undergrad level. So and then that's like a huge misconception I think people have in general. I think it's a very valuable career path to go into, and there's a lot of technical things that you learn from it. And for me, at least it started off at the very basic levels when I started. They start at the very basics, whether it's accounting or finance or marketing. They start at the very basics of how things are kind of going, and they start building up. So for me, I had no idea, and I just learned everything through classes, but also I learned a lot through my clubs. A lot of the upperclassmen. So when I was a freshman, a lot of the juniors and seniors, I would just get coffee with them, and they would go over some concepts with me about accounting or finance through my clubs. They would teach me some things. So one step is to be proactive. For example, I would get a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. It's not that expensive. And certain schools have it for free. So at Michigan now it's free, but before then it's $50 a year. Read on what's going on in the news, especially if you want to go into business, because a lot of events that are going on, and now especially because of COVID, how that's affecting, let's say, interest rates or unemployment rate and that kind of stuff, and how businesses are adapting to COVID. If you read on what's going on in the news, you will naturally kind of just build up a knowledge of how business works, because a lot of business is really action-based learning. It's not like engineering or physics where you learn the theory. You really need to actually do the work or get exposed to it in a real environment to really understand what business really is. And so I got that through my investing clubs, actually investing real money in the stock markets, understanding how companies work financially, or through reading the news and seeing how and getting an understanding of what the terminology is. For example, a lot of business articles will say, oh, EPS went up by 10%. Well, I didn't know what EPS was, so I just Google up what is EPS, earnings per share. So things like that, just naturally, if you read a lot of things, you'll find terms you don't know, but then if you just Google that stuff, you will start learning more and more. So naturally, over time, through classes, through your friends that are studying business, and also like upperclassmen who have interned or worked in business, they all will kind of get you exposed to everything, and you will pick it up. I picked up a lot right away, even like 2 months into the school year, my freshman year, and I literally had no business background at all coming into college.
Okay, thank you. That helped.
Why did you choose business?
Yeah, good question. So this is not for me to criticize other career paths, but so I actually did think I wanted to do engineering. I really did for the longest period of time, especially computer science or IT or that space. But I took AP computer science, and I did like it, but I just didn't. I didn't find that engaging to do a career path of coding for 8 hours a day. To be honest, I wanted something where it's something that's more client driven, more collaborative focused. That's more kind of broader in general, where you're doing the technical stuff. So in finance, I'm still doing the modeling, I'm still doing technical work, but it's a client driven business. I'm working with actual Fortune 500 companies. I'm making a huge impact. We're changing, like, if they want to acquire another company, we're on the forefront of that deal. When you see the headline, Microsoft acquires LinkedIn for billions of dollars, right? That's someone like me that was behind the scenes behind that. So I think just the impact is so obvious, and you can see how you're impacting businesses, especially if you're in consulting, working behind the scenes on improving operations of an organization or a company. I just loved all the broad skill sets that I could gain from. Of course, there's days where I'll be at my computer doing all the number crunching, all of that. But there's also days where I'm in these big meetings talking to I'll be in meetings. Obviously, at my level, I won't be talking to CEOs, but I will be in a meeting where my boss will be talking to a CEO of a company, and to get their insights on what's going on is really unique. And every day is like kind of a new life, and business is just so related based on what's going on current events wise. What President Trump does, if he changes an economic policy, when he changes, for example, in 2017, when he changed the tax cut rates, that changes how businesses are structured. That changes the incentive. Businesses will bring in money now into the U.S. So that just completely changes everything. So on an everyday basis, things are changing based on what's going on in the economy, and that impacts your work and job on a daily basis, which I think makes it very exciting. And I love the aspect of just being able to interact with people and being able to see the impact of your work on businesses. So that's why, for me, I personally really enjoyed going into finance.
Why did you choose Michigan?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I kind of applied everywhere, kind of all over the country. But for me, I wanted to stay relatively close to home. So as Neil mentioned, I live in the suburbs of Chicago. So I looked at a lot of schools in Illinois, and so like schools like Urbana and all that. But my thing was I wanted to go to a school that had a very strong business program, and Michigan had that. But I also wanted to stay in the Midwest, close to home, so I could come back home. I miss my mom's home food cooking and all that a lot. So being able to come home a good amount, it's only a 4-hour drive, is great. But then on top of that, I also wanted to go to like a big school. I just in general, I'm more an extroverted person and I love just meeting people. And so I just wanted to go to a really big school and meet as many people as possible. And I love sports. So Michigan has great sports. So I absolutely love football and basketball. And so I think it was a mixture of just being close to home and being in the Midwest. That's what I wanted to be in. Going to kind of a big school that had kind of great sports culture, and then also a school with a very, very strong academic program in business. And because I knew I wanted to go into finance going to college, Michigan had a very strong placement rate within investment banking with a lot of alumni network. And that's the advantage of kind of a big school like Michigan is they actually have a lot of alumni. And anywhere you go out on the streets, everyone says "Go Blue," and you'll always find someone that says that anywhere you go. So I think that's really cool. It's kind of going to a big school with that big network. So that was kind of like the reason why I decided to go to Michigan.
Do you have any advice for us when we choose what major we want to do in college?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing is just kind of having an idea of what potential career paths are available in your specific major. So for example, like people can be like, I'm interested in business, but that's so broad. I mean, what does that mean, right? Do you want to do marketing? Do you want to go into more of a technology focus, like product management role? Traditionally, do you want to go into finance, consulting, management? Like, what does that mean, right? So, like for me, like I had no idea what the heck investment banking was. Coming to college, I literally had no idea. So I think the first thing is just being exposed to knowing like what that work actually is. What is a software programmer? Like, what does that actually mean? Like what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? And of course, look, you have Google. That's an amazing tool. You can always use Google for everything. Being able to just watch YouTube videos of what people do on a day-to-day life. Talk to people who are actually in the industry or in that path. If you want to go to medicine, talk to doctors, talk to physicians, talk to nurses. I think the best thing you can always do is just talk to people who are actually in the industry and what that life is like. And the one thing like I think this is very important to say is don't think that if you choose a major that you're locked in that for the rest of your life. That does not mean that at all. You go in freshman year, and let's say after a semester, you're majoring in mechanical engineering, and you realize it's not for me, it's not interesting. And if you want to switch to, I don't know, like electrical engineering or even something else or business or something, do that. Make that switch. As long as it's doable where you can still finish in 4 years, make that switch if you can. I've had friends who went from biomedical engineering to CS, or they went from CS. A lot of people, a lot of people went from pre-med to CS. Can't tell you how many of my friends did that. So it's a very common thing to switch. So if that's your case, do that. And also, let's say you've been major for 4 years and you start a career path. That doesn't mean you have to stick with that. I don't know if I want to do investment banking for the rest of my life? Probably not. I don't see it as something I want to do for more than 2 or 3 years. Honestly, it's just not a lifestyle I want to live. It's a lot of work. So that's something where I might want to consider at some point. If I do an MBA, I might want to switch into something else. So I think always be open-minded and be flexible to what's available and out there for you, and just read up as much as possible. I mean, there's so many things online. But I think the best way is just to talk to people who are actually doing the work. So when you go to college, if you're interested in CS, talk to a junior, talk to a senior who interned at Microsoft or Apple or whatever, someone who interned somewhere, right? Ask them, how was your 10-week experience? How was your 12-week experience this past summer? Like, what did you do day to day? Like, how's the lifestyle like? Like, are you learning new things? Did you work on cool projects? Is it very engaging? So I think that's the best way to figure it out, kind of in terms of what you want to do. But again, always be open-minded because a lot of people switch. So if you want to make that switch, that's totally okay, especially if you want to do it your freshman year or sophomore year of college.
I have a question. At what year, like at what grade should you pick your careers or do the clubs you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. For career-wise, you could pick it actually. I mean, any time, especially if it's business. I mean, if it's like medicine, I mean, you have to take the MCAT at some point, so you probably want to know probably by junior year or something. If you got to spend some time studying for that. But especially for business and even engineering, you could choose any time. I mean, I was between many career paths. I was between consulting and investment banking for a while. It wasn't really until sophomore year. And every career path is kind of different. So some career paths you need to know kind of earlier. So for example, for me, I had to know by sophomore year because my interview process started during my sophomore year, my second year. So I was interviewing around like March of my sophomore year. It's really early. But like if you want to do consulting, they don't start doing interviews until like October or even November of junior year. Because so the way it works, I should probably clarify this, is the way it works is typically most people get internships after their junior year of college. So after their third year, it's unlikely that you'll get something significant after your first or second year, just because you don't have that background and experience yet. You haven't been in college. No, that's not always the case. If you're in computer science, I know a lot of sophomores who do get into these like big programs, internships sophomore summer at these like big tech companies. But for the most case scenario, like, yeah, you're probably not going to have a big internship until after junior year. So I would say by junior year, I would recommend you have an idea of what career path you want to go into after your first 2 years of college. But after that, look, let's say you hate your internship after the summer and you want to switch to a different career path. You can always do that. You can always recruit for a different career path. And the way that works is you have on-campus and off-campus recruiting. So a lot of times your college will have like a job dashboard. And what you'll do is you'll submit a resume. If there's an essay, but most of the times there's no essays for job applications. That's really only college applications. You'll just submit like a resume and like a cover letter, which you kind of just give an introduction of who you are. And you just submit that to a bunch of jobs. And then that's what starts the process. So as long as you have an idea by then and a lot of these, and before the deadlines of these applications, you can really choose any time, but I would say before junior year. In terms of clubs, I would highly and strongly recommend you join clubs freshman year as soon as possible. Get involved early on. Especially for me, like if I joined a club junior year, I wouldn't have much to talk about in my interviews, right? Because I haven't done much. But because I joined freshman year, I came in leadership positions during my sophomore year. So because of that, I was able to speak a lot about my experience as a leadership in a leadership position in a finance club during my sophomore year of college. So in terms of clubs, I would join right away as a freshman, get involved, get active. But in terms of career paths, you have more flexibility there. You can decide kind of whenever, but before junior years is what I say, because that's when a lot of the big internships start happening.
Do we have any more questions? If not, we can move on to the breakout rooms. All right, no more? Okay, so thank you so much for talking about the college. Even I got super confused with the college process, but you totally cleared it up. So thank you so much for taking your time to talk. So we're now gonna move on to the career part of our event. So we are going to put you in breakout rooms based on your interest in our forum. So Uncle, will you put the breakout rooms in? And if you did not sign up, please stay on the main session. We will put you in a breakout room shortly.
And if you are in this Zoom right now with a different name than the one you were signed up on the forum, just change it. So that way we know based on the forum.
All right, so this is Utkal. I'll set you up with the breakout rooms. Should we just go by the participant list, ask them quickly who wants to go where? We have four breakout rooms. One is around engineering, one is science, one is business, medical. If they are pre-assigned, then maybe one of you, either Sharanya or Ria, you want to call out the name so I quickly assign them, or do the participants themselves want to self-segregate?
Ria, do you want to call
out? So
Yeah.
how about first, let's go to engineering. Tell me the names who should go to engineering.
All right, so first session engineering is Devabandia.
I don't see Devabandia's name.
I saw him today. He's actually his
I'm
first,
here.
Yeah.
No, what's his display name?
Das Devabandia.
Oh, Das. Okay, got it. Who else engineering?
Aryan.
Aryan. I see Ayan Patnaik. Is it a different name?
It's Aryan. You speak up if you can. It'll help with go out and make these breakout rooms.
There's a chance some people might not be here, but if you are here, just speak up when we call your name.
Yeah. Okay, looks like he's not here. Eilish, are you here? Okay, he looks like he's not here. Sarah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
What's your display name on Zoom?
My name is Sarakshi.
Okay, got it.
Okay, then Tanisha, are you here? Tanisha? No? Okay. Sahasa? Are you here?
No, I don't see.
Okay. Ananya? Aanya?
I'm here.
What's your display name?
I think her name is Anya Patnaik.
Anya.
Okay.
Sneha?
Yeah, got Sneha Adhikari. Got it.
Okay. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Ryan, got it.
Okay. We have Prince? No?
Prince. No.
Okay. Nilay?
Don't see any name.
Right. And Sahil.
Sahil. Don't see a name.
All right. That's all engineering.
Okay.
Another thing, I'm going to be moderating the engineering thing, so
Yeah.
you could add me there, whatever.
You are there, right? So how about next is other sciences? Who is?
We have Devasnata,
Okay.
Devansi,
Okay.
Rishi,
Rishabh. Is that Rishabh Sahu?
Yes.
Okay.
then we have Ayan,
Ayan. Yes.
Shavi. Sorry if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong. Please correct me.
Spelling?
Shavivi.
I don't see.
Okay. Gitanjali
Ritanjali. Okay.
and Aditi.
Aditi. Okay. That's about the science. Now going to business.
Business, we have Aditya,
Mm-hmm.
Ruchika. Well, she's
Yeah.
Alukya,
Who? What's the name?
ALO.
I don't see any.
Okay. Youth,
Who? What's the spell it for me, please?
YUV.
No, I don't see.
Okay, then Swadha.
Swadha. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all for business.
Okay. All right. Then I have medical.
Medicine is Tejas,
Don't see it.
Swati.
Swati, not the presenter. There's a person named Swati.
Okay.
Ridhi,
Nope.
Ishi Devis,
Rishi.
no, Ridhi.
Riddhi. No, I don't see it.
Okay,
That. Yeah.
okay. Ishi Devish,
Devesh. No, don't see it.
Trisha,
No.
Priyanka.
Yeah.
Okay, Sanjana,
What was the name? Tell me again, please.
Sanjana.
Sanjana. No.
Okay, Misha.
No.
Kashvi,
Kashvi. No. Oh yeah. Yes. Sorry. Got it.
Divika,
Yep.
Manaswi.
All right. So that's about the medical. So others, I have Anushka Mahanti, Deepak Shahu. Then I have a DS, and then I see Kukuapa, PR, Rohan Das, Bish Sahu, Samarth Hazari, Tamanna Khuntia. These names are not allocated. Would you like to attend one of these rooms? Because I don't think there is anything going on in the main lobby. So you guys need to move. Okay.
Thank you, Utkal. Actually, I'm following the session. It's going so well. Good job, Ria and everybody. Just go ahead, and you don't have to assign me to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Utkal, if you could assign me to the business, this is Deepak.
Okay. That's nice.
Rohan Das wants to go in engineering.
Who, Rohan Das, you said?
Yes. If your name was called and you didn't sign up, please put your preference in the chat so we can do that. Okay.
Rohan Das is engineering. Okay, I have Bish Shahu, Samarth Hazari.
Yes. Samartha Hazari wants to be in other sciences.
Hi, this is Bish. Can you assign me to engineering?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anuksha wants to be in business.
Okay.
Amana wants to be in engineering.
All right.
Aditya Patnaik wants to switch to other sciences.
He was in business, right? Okay. Move to science, other sciences. Okay.
And Ajit wants to be in medical.
Where is Ajit right now?
Ajit Mohanty.
I'm in the call, Utkal.
You want to be in medical, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just put me in medical. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm sending you all to the breakout rooms. The breakout room will continue for 25 minutes and then you will come back to this main lobby. Okay. And then Ria, I'll have to step out for another call a little bit, but since you are co-host, I think once you can come in and control. And once these rooms are there, you should be able to see. So once I click the button, everybody will be sent to this, your individual breakout rooms. And then once 25 minutes is over, you will get a warning saying that in 1 minute, this is closing. You can leave now or let it expire in 1 minute. So you'll be back in this main lobby. All right.
Uncle, if it makes it easier, you can always make me host. If you
Sure, I will do that right now. Right.
Can you put me in other sciences, please?
Yeah, we put you in there. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'll be sharing my screen for 1 second.
Yeah, are you the screen or somebody else? DS?
Utkal, that's mine.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay. Good.
So Jyoti Mishra speaker today. She's from Chicago area and she works in the field of healthcare and administration. She attended the University of Illinois.
So Deepak bhai, ei jo ID re apna main hall le achandi seita ko mu host kar dei parbi ki apna asile debe aku mate to call te na.
Majored in community healthcare and minored
Okay.
in business. So you can start.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, just as you introduced, my name is Jyoti Mishra. I'm from the Chicago area. And yes, I work in the field of healthcare administration, which I will
I think we are the first ones to be back.
Yeah, maybe everyone took some more time, but yeah. I guess while we're waiting, you could answer some more questions if there are any. It might be taking more time to answer questions. So
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, could have just entertain more if anybody has any.
okay, so I guess since no one's asking, I guess I could answer a question or ask a question. So what advice do you have? Oh, okay. Well, more people are coming. But what, in general, like what advice would you have for someone who's interested in engineering? Yeah, like from high school, say, like what would you be doing in high school if you had an interest?
Math and science, of course, be the strong focus. Keep an awareness on where your interests are evolving in the junior and senior years, because if you're, you know, if you have a bent for, let's say, coding, programming, right? Chances are, it could be you could be orienting yourself towards, computer science or something IT related, right? Electronics and computer science are almost go hand in hand nowadays. And I talked about that autonomy and cars and so forth, right? They are all heavily into hardware and software. So very, very cross-discipline approach nowadays. So oftentimes people start out in one field. I think others mentioned that too, and they end up actually going to a different.
Yeah, so sorry that we were just answering some last questions. So I think we're on the main session now, so we can just go back to that. Thank you, Rajiv. Uncle.
Yeah, so we hope everyone enjoyed their first session. So, Shunya, why don't you explain our career directory that we are planning to come up after this event?
Okay, yeah, sure. So basically, we have a website now that we're making for OSA Youth, and we are going to be listing a bunch of careers on there, and we're going to be giving information for how you can contact some of the speakers today, or just people in general for different types of careers. So the idea is that way if you have any questions that maybe you didn't get answered today, or maybe you have a question which later on just came up, then you can contact these people and you can ask them separately on your own time. But I think this will be, we'll give you the information to the website. We're still setting it up. And the speakers will talk to you later and ask you if you want to. But if you do, then you guys will be able to contact the speakers and ask more personal questions or anything else you wanted to know. I think right now we are waiting for Utkal Uncle to send us all to the second breakout rooms. But I hope you guys liked the first breakout room, and I hope it was informative. And thank you so much to the speakers once again for talking.
So does anyone want to share their experience about how it is so far? I know we're only halfway, but you can share some of your experiences.
So like I was in the business group, and when I learned so much, and I'm like so thankful from Jyoti Didi for like sharing all this information. So I got like a lot of ideas like what to participate in high school and in college, like what clubs and activities and like what I should focus in. So that was really cool.
Yeah, so I was also in the medicine room, and I really liked it. I learned a lot about what the process kind of is, and it was definitely very informative, and I learned a lot about medicine and in general what it takes to become a doctor.
Okay, since I guess all the moderators are talking, I'm just gonna say I was in the engineering room, and I just learned a lot about engineering. Even though myself, I'm leaning more towards medicine, and I didn't really know that much about engineering. So I really got to learn like a lot about like practical applications and stuff like that that I just didn't really understand before.
I was in the engineering room too, and I really liked it. We ran out of time, but like I learned a lot about what it takes to be an engineer and the qualities you should have as an engineer.
Okay, well, while we are waiting for Utkal Uncle, we're gonna play the game we played last time, where I pick on a random person from the participants list and you get to share what you learned. So I'm picking a random person and closing my eyes, and we have picked Manaswi. If you are here.
She might not be here anymore. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well,
I'm
she's
here. Sorry.
Oh, no, okay.
So do I?
Yeah, you can just share about something you learned.
Okay. So I definitely learned about like how to really start off thinking about like your career path after college, and I think that's a really important thing to think about because currently I'm in the application process and I'm starting to look into different types of programs to apply to. And I think something that was definitely cleared up for me today is that like you can go into many different things and you can still go into med school. You don't have to do the typical majors that everybody does to get into med school. So I think that was really important for me to hear from somebody who knew what they were discussing.
Okay, I'm gonna pick someone from the list. Aditi, do you want to share your experience?
I was in the other science room and I learned that there's a lot of different sciences outside of like medicine and all the degrees and all the things you need to do to get there and all the career options you have after you get a degree.
Okay, next person is Sneha. What did you learn today?
I was in the engineering group and I learned what you needed to do in order to be good at engineering, and there's so many different kinds like mining and metallurgy. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, there's so many different choices to choose from and you can learn a lot from them. And I'm planning to choose maybe a few classes for engineering in high school.
Okay, our next person is let's go with Rishab. Rishabh Sahu, are you there? Okay, he doesn't seem like he's there. Sarah.
She already spoke.
She did.
How about Priyanka?
So I was in the medical group, and I learned like the process of like how to get into residency and just the process in general of like what to do to go into medical school and stuff.
Let's do Swadha.
I was in the business group and I learned a lot about the best ways to get exposure to business in school and about all the different options there are for business. So I'm really grateful to Jyoti Nani for telling me about that.
And Kyle.
How about you, Deb? Devisnatha?
Well, I was in the other sciences group, and it was Dr. Hazari over there. He's a microbiologist, so I learned about like what he does and how that job works, from the labs to the certification and the skill required for it to handle all those substances. So yeah.
Anya, how was your experience?
I was in the engineering room and I learned a lot about the steps to take to become an engineer and a lot of the different types of engineering.
Okay, Anushka, I know you were in the business room, right? And I know that
Yeah.
Kyle recently got his MBA, is what Jyoti Nani told me. So maybe do you want to talk about like what he talked about, what you learned?
Yeah, like a lot of what I learned in being in like the business group was the different careers that are like within business. I did not know it was that vast. And then also like I also got to learn a little bit about the medicine side of the bit of business and like how many different ways you can still be in business while like having such different careers.
Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing your experiences. We are still waiting to make the breakout rooms, but it would be a lot easier if everyone could be ready to join their next one. So I'm gonna call out your name, and once this is the first one's gonna be business. If you are gonna be in the business session for the second one, I want you to add BUS in front of your name on your Zoom. And if you don't know how to do it, you go to participants and click rename and rename yourself. So people going into business are Sneha, Devabandya, Aryan, Anya, and Sanjana. If your name was called, make sure you put BUS in front of it. Okay, I'm going on to engineering. Tejas, Yuv, Ishidevas, Devesh, Trisha, Debasnata, Ayan, Misha, Aditi, Kashvi, Swada, Divika, and Manaswi.
Wait, Ria, which one did you just do?
Engineering. So this is ENG. All right. Then other sciences is Ailesh, Swati, Riddhi, Priyanka, Ryan, Prince, and Sahil. Okay. Then finally we have medicine, Debansi, Rishi, Sarah, Tanisha, Saharsa, Gitanjali, and Nilay.
If you didn't hear your name or you didn't sign up previously, let us know now so then we can put you in whichever one you want.
Yeah, so put in the chat like last time.
And actually, it might just be easier to just add it to your name, and then we'll go around seeing whose name hasn't been put.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being really understanding with us. We're still waiting for the second breakout room, but we're really glad that you guys attended, so thank you.
Okay, since we are having trouble with the breakout rooms, we can start presentations in here. So whatever speaker would like to go first may start presenting.
I can go like for the whole group. This will be engineering for everyone.
No, just for the whole group. We're having problems with our breakout rooms today, so you can just go ahead to the whole group.
All right. How much time do I have?
Same time, 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Let me see if I can just share my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
All right. If you get interrupted at any point, that's fine. Some of you have seen this already, so that's all right. So engineering as a career, the way I thought about it is best summarized in these two short videos. So I'm not going to play the whole thing in the interest of time. You may have seen this movie. It's the Apollo 13, but let's see how it looks.
Well, between Jack's back taxes and the Fred Hayes show, I'd say that was a pretty successful broadcast.
Thank you very much, Houston. We got a couple of housekeeping procedures for you. We'd like you to roll right to 060 and know your rates. Roger that. Rolling right, 060. And then if you could give your oxygen tanks a stir. Roger that. Hey, we've got a problem here. What did you do? Nothing. I stirred the tanks. Whoa. Hey. This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
All right, I'm going to stop there. So what I communicated to the other group was the entire space of engineering can be summarized into this one statement. Houston, we have a problem. So people yelling out, sort of, all across the nations, the world. Engineers solve problems. That's I guess the summary, right? I'm going to skip this video. It's basically, so by the way, this is just not a movie. This actually happened. In case you guys, I'm sure many of you already know, Apollo 13 was a gigantic failure from a mission standpoint, but an amazing engineering success in terms of bringing back the stranded astronauts from in between Earth and space, Moon, right, coming back. So they had all kinds of problems. So if you haven't seen that movie, highly recommend. This is really about coming up with a solution about really filtering out carbon dioxide from the limb, from the shuttle that they were in, because carbon dioxide was accumulating. So creating a filter that is supposed to fit a round filter, creating a round filter and to fit into a square hole. So engineers really deal with all kinds of problems. But it's not always about fitting a square peg into a round hole. But the point is, engineering is about improvising and finding new solutions, right? That are both efficient and time, both in time and cost. So one key thing with engineering, in case you guys are wondering, is really if you guys have any affinity towards science and math in general, and some strong communication skills, you're all born engineers. Doesn't matter which field. There are a variety of fields in engineering. Some core fields like mechanical, electrical, and so forth. But over the last few years, there have been many offshoot branches like mechatronics, bioengineering, and so forth. Just going to skip through something. Again, why engineering? Everybody has at some level a desire to explore and innovate. So if you have a desire ever to build a product, whether it's hardware or software, that does make a difference in the world. Again, engineering is for you. Engineering products make life easier in general, right? And then I have some examples here that you can view later. Some critical success factors or skills, if you will. And this is true with any field, really, business, medicine, engineering, is being inquisitive, asking questions and challenging what you have in front of you, being analytical and recognizing that there's a problem, defining a problem, and coming up with solutions, of course, is part of it. But those are some key things that enable your success in general in any field, and applying your domain knowledge properly, right? And I'm just going to skip again. This was my sort of a takeaway slide, if you will. One thing I sort of skipped over in the engineering breakout room But I just wanted to highlight one thing. How do you prepare yourself to be a good candidate for any engineering in general? In fact, for any field for that matter. Definitely some other people highlighted, right? Seek out internships. Even at high school level, there are companies that offer internships. Become aware, read up, and those are some of the key things, right? Talk to people, interview people, right? Those who are experienced in their fields, people like us, Swati auntie, and a lot of your own dads and moms have also gone through that process, right? So do that. I just wanted to quickly highlight, I work with Caterpillar, and this is one of the largest mechanical trucks in the world, the 797 giant 3-story high truck. This has components from practically all branches of engineering. It's not just mechanical or electrical. So just wanted to highlight that. And then one very important trend nowadays in engineering is the robotics and autonomy. So good case in point, your Tesla, and it is a semi-autonomous and a fully autonomous car. And a lot of the technologies that go inside Tesla are all engineering driven. So that is kind of my summary. I don't know how much more time we have. A fun fact, you guys can see about it later. Just a general question, since we have a bigger audience. Who's this picture? Whose picture is this on the right? That's a quiz.
Give us a hint.
It's an old gentleman from hundreds of years back. He was a multi-talented individual. He actually did some painting as well.
Is it Leonardo da Vinci?
Leonardo da Vinci.
Perfect. Good job. Good job. Renaissance painter, a person extraordinaire, often described as a polymath. Anybody know what the meaning of the word polymath is?
Yeah, I think it's like someone who has knowledge in many different fields. So they're both, yeah.
That's perfect. Very good. Very good. So take a look at these videos at your spare. I'll just stop here. Anybody has any questions?
Great. I learned a lot of things from you, Rajiv Das. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hazari.
Yeah, no.
Very interesting.
That's good to know that. Yeah, I know engineering is a very, very important subject we use in our biomedical field. All the equipments, I was telling the other kids, other group, all the equipments we use in our lab, mostly built by engineers, like biomedical engineers and mechanical engineers. Almost all the equipments. And there are some robotics came up, like we used to do manually. Now, like thousands of samples has to be handled in a certain period of time. We need robotics, like the pipetting and other things has to be done by the robots, and then we just load some of the samples and analyze later on. So guys, engineering also is a very, very interesting and fascinating field.
Thank you, Dr.
Appreciate
comment.
Actually, based on Dr. Hazari's thing, I want to ask a question. I know you work with CAT, but in what other ways does engineering apply to the world? Because there's a lot of types of engineering.
So think about it. That's a good question, Sharanya. Engineering has been around for thousands of years. I was looking up, right? I was doing my homework to help you guys prepare for your this session here. One thing I had come across long back, but I forgot, was that ancient Romans, thousands of years ago, they had come up with something called aqueducts. If you have heard of that term, aqueducts are these they dig deep trenches in the earth, and those are very long trenches that carry water from one place to another place. So aqueducts are Roman inventions. So my point of bringing that up was, and then people have come up with bridges. So anything that helps improve the human life in general, right? is encompassed by engineering. So that's a very broad general field, right? So you pick anything around you. Watch the movie Three Idiots, right? So Amir Khan makes that comment, right?
I was thinking of the same statement.
हर एक चीज जो हमारे साथ है जो जो हमारे it improves our life is a machine, and it's an engineering product. So software is a classic example, right? Who thought even 50 years back or 30 years back that software will actually become an engineering field? So it's pretty amazing, huh?
Okay, thank you, Rajiv Uncle. That was very informative. Even though I wasn't there for the first one, I wish I was there. Okay, so next we will go to Dr. Hazari. He is a microbiologist with extensive expertise in public health, microbiology, cancer research with progressive experience in drug development, host pathogen interaction. So please give it up for Dr. Hazari.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, let me share my screen. Can you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to go too much detail on my education or training. I did bachelor in veterinary science back in India. Most of my education is in India. And then as an immigrant, I came here and followed my training and other things, core subjects and more training, more certification to become a microbiologist and working in the public health system. So I was veterinary science, then I was fascinating with microbes and then infectious diseases. So I did I did my master's in veterinary bacteriology and virology, and then my PhD was in molecular virology and immunology, which is more fascinating. It's a different topic. I will not go in detail, but I was studying the human viruses that time, mostly hepatitis B and C viruses, because it was that time the hepatitis C virus was discovered 5-6 years before that time when I was doing PhD, and a lot of research was going that time. So I was doing some contribution that time. And then I did my postdoctoral fellowship, and then I was a project scientist in UC Davis studying most of the drug development and nanoparticles, how we can load nanoparticles to do cancer therapeutics, all these things. And then I became a microbiologist in a public health lab. Then I will go to the skills, as Das uncle was telling you, that the core subjects you have to take in your after your high school, you have to select what you want to do. But most of the core subjects like physics, chemistry, and biology, those are the important ones. And if you want to become a scientist or whatever, like any biomedical field you want to go, you have to be very good at chemistry, math, and biology. And then you have to do your core courses. Suppose you want to move on to your graduate studies and then become a postdoc, you have to do all these microbiology. Suppose you're microbiologist, and then there are options to become a, so you have to do chemistry related more advanced courses and microbiology courses. And then you have to do your training and certification whenever it is needed to become your expert in that field. And then exposure to new technology and advancement time to time. Every day, new things are discovered. In all over the world, every day, somebody is writing a research paper, and lots of new things are happening. So that's the science advancing every time. So that's the betterment for the for the humankind. And once you contribute to that, the little bit contribution to that thing, you will be like, oh, I did something to the to the greater role. And then I was just showing this one, what you can do as a scientist. You became a graduate, and then in science, and then postdoc, some type of fellowship you'll do, and then you can join as a biotech or industry, and do job there, or you can do a policy making, like join FDA or local government agencies, do science there also, universities, and you can do policy making also, decisions. And then some part of some of the people do also consulting. but not much. But most of the people either join academic field, become a research scientist, or a faculty member, teach, all these fascinating things you can do, whatever you want to do. And then next slide, my job, most of the things I do in the lab. So I have to go to the lab to do those things. In this pandemic also, I am going regularly to the lab. Some of the things I cannot do it from home. So most of the things I do by testing and analysis of clinical samples that come to the lab. We have a clinical lab. So we have a certification, so we can report to the physician what bug I found, like a bacteria or virus or a fungus or a parasite from the specimens, human specimens like blood, urine, stool, all different types of specimens come to the lab and it processed, and we have a system to do it, and then we have some machines, definitely, and then some analytical methods we have to apply and judge, okay, this is the thing happened and this is the thing I have to report. So, and then I have to time communicate with the communicable disease group because we are the public health lab. So what's there going on any outbreak situation, like suppose this the pandemic situation, we are always in touch with the community disease groups that investigate and find out all the outbreaks happening in different parts of the state or a county or a district subdivision, and they collect the samples. So we have to tell them, okay, we found this positives from this region, and all this interaction has to be back and forth. And then data sharing with major agencies like CDC and FDA or WHO. So it happens on the back end that we generate this data, and then we have to tell them that this outbreak happened, this is the thing, virus or bacteria is happening. And we do a little bit more on this, like any virus part is mutating or any bacterial gene is mutating, so that they can know, okay, what to do in the as a national policy or a state policy. So they will formulate those things in the system. So suppose vaccine is an example. So every year the flu vaccine is designed, major strains are included. So those decisions has to be done on basing on the data. And then we have to write small grants and attend conferences and symposiums to gain more knowledge and interactions with other people, what they are doing and what advancements are going on in the scientific field. And then I was showing this slide just to tell you what type of career options are there in the biomedical science as a graduate. Once you become past the college, you can go to the medical or allied professions and become a doctor or a physician associate, or you can go to become a pharma industry or biotechnology, or you can go to get more expertise in the academics and research degrees, and you can work on the academic field, either government or industry. Also, they have some openings. And you can also biomedical scientist, clinical scientist, work in a lab like me. And then you can also go to scientific publishing. You can be a scientific writer or editor. Okay, you can do a lot of things in the scientific field. And then yeah, same thing, different options. Engineering also, you can do biomedical engineering. Those kits or those detection things we develop. There are biology background needed to develop those kits, and then engineering also needed. So everything. Suppose I was telling same things to the other group. Whenever we see under a microscope, as a microbiology, we use the different type of microscopes. So there is optics involved. So everything is different science involved, like chemistry, physics, all these core subjects. If you are really interested in science or going to a field, you have to know the core subjects, definitely good, so that you can utilize those knowledge at the you're at your end. And these are the different options you have as a biomedical science field. A little bit about perks and salary, because Rio was telling me to do some of the things. What do you get after all these things? You have to get something, right? Not much, but it is good. As a starting point, you can earn like 70, 80K per year. And there are some other things that are, coming with that, like a pension or, all these options, other options are there, like you can get benefits. And then different other scientific jobs are getting around 94, 90, below 100K. But there are pharmaceutical biotechnology industry. If you are joining as entry level and you go up, you can get a 6-figure salary. And as a postdoc, suppose people must be thinking, why I'll do postdoc? That's not a job, that's a fellowship. But this fellowship also gives you like 40, 50K per year that you can sustain yourself, right? You don't have to ask your parents that, oh, give me this money. But after this, you will be, all set. Your career is mostly set. You will be going which direction you want to join a faculty member or a biotech industry. So all these options are there. And I'll skip this. This is just a as a postdoc, what perks you'll get. Nowadays they're giving 12 days sick leave, and that can be at the time of postdoc, you will be like around 25, 26. Suppose you want to get settled in your life, so you can get some of the leaves and other perks, benefits are there. I'll stop here, and any questions or comments?
I was wondering how, if you do research and how the pandemic would have affected what research you do.
What effect? Can you repeat that?
So, like, do you do research? And if you do, how do you do anything related to the coronavirus?
Oh yeah, sure. Definitely. I currently I cannot do research more in the clinical lab. But when I was in UC Davis as a research scientist, I can do my stuff, and my colleagues who are there, they are doing most of the things. But I am doing testing. So once this coronavirus pandemic happened, we are inundated with samples, and a lot of pressure was there to get the reports out. There is people waiting to be treated, or they have to quarantine themselves, so we have to give report within 24 hours. So we adopted technology. So the biotech industries, they also did a lot of effort to bring up new technology to test. The test can be done within a certain period of time. Before, it was taking a little bit long time. So then we adopted 6 platforms of testing within a month. So we learned it, like we have to evaluate it. So CDC gave us some kits, and then we have to evaluate and test immediately. So yeah, we did some of the things in our lab, and then I was involved in that. Still now we are doing daily basis. But other people, my colleagues in different universities, they are either doing vaccine studies or antiviral drugs for the coronavirus, or how to develop new kits or testing method. So there are a lot of things going on the side by side, and publishing. People are studying how the virus spreads, transmission happens. So they have all these different types of projects they're doing side by side. So to address the pandemic situation, or to prepare for the next pandemic, or something happens next, how the virus is spreading, how to stop that, all these type of things are going on. So if you are in the scientific field, you can be a part of that.
How or
Any,
when
yeah.
did you know you were interested in viruses?
Oh, that's a good question. Viruses are very small things, we cannot see that. But in a microscope, normal microscope also you cannot see, but electron microscope, you can see the shadow, not the virus itself. So they have a system, they can stain it and then see the shadow. But viruses are interesting because evolutionarily, viruses are very, very, primitive, and they are sustained throughout the evolutionary phase. And it is very fascinating how they are evolving still. And if we want to keep ourselves away from the virus, we cannot. Sometimes we have to be exposed. But some of the viruses, like this pandemic, we could have avoided this because we are so close to the wildlife or wild animals. Most of these viruses are circulating in the wild animals or exotic animals. If we avoid that, we can be prevented. And then some lot of vaccines are available to prevent us. We have a shield. If you take all the vaccines, you are immune to a lot of viral diseases, which can very devastating in the sense of disease or death rate. So it can be prevented.
How many
Did I
years?
answer your question? Sorry.
How many years of college did you do for
Oh,
microbiology?
yes. So I did the veterinary science, but you don't have to do that. But after college, like 4 years, you can do graduate studies or masters. Suppose you want to do masters program 2 years and then PhD maybe 4 to 5 years. Then you are graduate to be a scientist in a field. So after college, maybe it's 4 to 6 years. Yeah, you have to have little bit patience. Because in the graduate program or postdoc, they don't pay that much, but it is okay. There are a lot of scholarships or fellowships available through NIH or other private foundations. A lot of options are there. People can apply and get those fellowships on their own, and join a lab. Write an email to your professor that I want to do this study. Can you take me? They have a program. You can join there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azar. That was very informative. Keeping time in mind, we're going to move on to the next speaker. So our next speaker is for medicine, and we have Dr. Raju Modi.
Hi, sorry about that. I was just off doing something else. So I do not have an organized presentation like our prior presenters did. My goal was really just question and answers to try to help everybody understand what the career path is for medicine. I think just having heard the last two conversations, it's important to realize that in medicine, we are essentially the end users of all the technology and the work that were done with our engineering colleagues and our microbiology and virology colleagues and all the sciences that really do go into the practice of medicine, where we utilize the technologies that have been developed. And they're truly remarkable what the biomedical engineers have come up with, and the tools that we have at our discretion that I don't even think about now on a day-to-day basis, but they're just absolutely remarkable. So with medicine, there's different aspects of it. There's, as we discussed in our breakout session, there's the academic portion of medicine, which does incorporate a lot of the biomedical engineering, the virology, the molecular genetics, which is an exploding field in medicine. I think for those who have a predilection for medicine and clinical and care, but also have an interest in the pursuit of the academics and the science and the discovery, it's an incredible opportunity to participate in that. Medicine also has the other aspect, which is what I'm mostly involved with, and that's the clinical aspect. And that's really on a one-on-one basis. So engineering has large ramifications, societal ramifications. Everything that's discovered has a societal impact. Medicine, on the other hand, is very one-on-one. Your interaction, you have knowledge and you understand what's happened and what has been discovered, but your information is relayed on in a one-on-one basis to the patient who's sitting across from you in a bed or in your office. So it's the responsibility to try to incorporate as much knowledge as you can into that decision-making process. The other fields that we were speaking about have a level of precision, which I envy, with engineering and with the molecular genetics and the virology. In medicine, it's understanding the precise sciences, but then applying it to an imprecise field, which is what medicine is. It's dealing with the human health. And as much as I would like that precision to be there, it's not always there. It's trying to do the best that we can. And that's why it's called the art of medicine or practice of medicine. The journey to get there is long. It can be very arduous, as I'm sure everybody knows, and similar to all the other fields that are being discussed. Your paths to get there can include engineering, can include virology, can include microbiology, can include chemistry, but it can also be divergent. We have many people who come in there from the business fields, who come in from mathematics, who come in from non-science and non-STEM fields, as I mentioned in my breakout group, to of my co-medical students, when I was in medical school. One was a philosophy major. He was a PhD in philosophy and decided he wanted to go into medicine. There are people in a variety of fields that go in there. Obviously, the more STEM-oriented background you have, probably the higher success rate that will be there to get into medicine, to get into medical school, and to achieve residencies that are what you desire to do. Getting in, there are books and multiple conversations on getting into colleges, and then getting into medical school is yet another level of conversation that I think is probably somewhat beyond the scope of our conversation today, and can involve an entire day of conversations on getting to medical school, and then getting into residencies and which residencies you want to get into, and then really focusing on what the type of medicine you want to practice in. That's something that's going to be very much something that you generate and you understand as you go through the process. Are you more interested in clinical medicine? Are you interested in dealing with patients one-on-one? Or are you interested more in the scientific pursuit of medicine, where you're dealing with societal issues? You're dealing with vaccines and implications of vaccines. You are studying microbes. You're studying the genetics of a particular disease in a very small microcosm of what we deal with. As clinicians, I'm a clinician now. I did some molecular genetics research, but I decided to go into the clinical fields. As clinicians, I'm incorporating a lot of information and trying to just distill it as much as I can. My level of knowledge is not nearly as deep on any specific science as our previous two speakers have. It's more broad-based, but it's trying to take a little bit of this knowledge, a little bit of that knowledge, and as much as I can, apply it to that particular patient and understanding the disease process to make a diagnostic, to have the diagnostic acumen, and then also to implement strategies for therapy, which might help that patient. That's just kind of I think medicine is very broad, as is every field, but I think it's a situation where I can engage in conversation with questions that might come up and hopefully be able to answer those a little bit, rather than giving a longer dissertation on what we do. My field is cardiology, so it's to me the greatest field that's out there. You have to be passionate to do these things, as you have to be about everything that you do, whatever your career path is. There's a lot that's involved in different aspects of medicine, and so I can try to answer those kind of questions, but I'll kind of leave it at that right now and allow the other speakers more time to communicate about what they were doing.
Doctor, I have one question. So you mentioned that you specialize in cardiology and you're a cardiologist. So how did you sort of choose that specialization, or what made you gravitate towards that?
That's a great question. It's because in my medical school training, and actually in my physiology lab in college, cardiac physiology was the field that I hated the most. It was the hardest field. I understood it the least. It just bothered me to no end. So in medical school, my initial intention, as I told the Breakout group, was first year as a medical student, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. That seemed like a really cool thing to do, until I did my first orthopedic rotation as a third year medical student and absolutely hated it. I was bored to tears. I couldn't stand it. So I decided to do internal medicine as my residency, my internship and residency at the University of Pittsburgh. And when I did medicine, you kind of sample all the different fields. So you get to see some pulmonary medicine, critical care medicine, dermatology, radiology, all the various fields. And that's when you kind of learn yourself. You have to understand what your goals are and what you're built for. I'm not built for sitting around and reading studies and more of a slower pace. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So when I did my rotation as an intern, that was the most dreaded rotation at the University of Pittsburgh. It was the CCU rotation. And I had the most difficult cardiologist to work with. I just loved it. And I was there. I started rounds at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would get home at midnight. I would read for an hour and I would be back at 5 o'clock. So for that entire month, my wife said, you know, I didn't really see you this entire month. She goes, but I've never seen you happier. And that's when it became evident that that's really what I enjoyed. It was demanding, it was grueling, but wow, was it a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden, my aversion to cardiac physiology just clicked. It just made sense. And I think when I was studying about it in a book, it didn't really bring home with me, but when it was the application to a critically ill patient, somebody having a heart attack, somebody on the verge of having substantial complications, all of a sudden understanding why that physiology and why that basic science makes so much of a difference in that clinical application, it was just fascinating. the tools that were at my discretion because of all the work that the biomedical engineers and that community had put together, the medications which were available to me because of all the work that the microbiologists and the physiologists had come up with in the pharmacologic industry was right there at my fingertips. And it was literally fine tuning what that patient was doing, utilizing the technologies and the medications that were available to me. It was just fascinating. And to watch somebody go from critical cardiac arrest and having CPR to go to the cath lab and open up an occluded artery and have that patient discharged to home 2 days later, fully functional, was awesome. It was just a lot of fun. And that's continued throughout my 22 years in clinical practice. So my decision was an evolution. It was not a decision. My wife is an ophthalmologist. She knew since the second grade she wanted to be an ophthalmologist. How somebody knows that, I don't understand. But that's some people do have that ability. My ability was to just kind of learn and discover what I enjoyed.
Thank you. I understood a lot from that.
I had a question. What are like some of the qualities you think are like necessary to go into like medical studies?
Yeah, that's I think a lot of them are probably compatible with every field that we're speaking of tonight and all the speakers that are here. Perseverance, diligence, a love for the field that you want, because if you don't really enjoy what you're doing, your life's not going to be that great. You're not going to enjoy what you're doing. You're not going to be happy. It could be the most easy field or the most arduous field, but if you love it, that's what's really going to drive it. So I think obviously there's a core level of intelligence and accomplishment that's required to get into any of these fields that we're speaking about in any type of higher level of study. Beyond that, I think you have to have an affinity for the sciences. Certainly you can get into medical school from other fields, business and the social sciences and philosophy and whatever else you might want to do. But certainly you have to have an affinity for the STEM fields. You have to have a core understanding and ability to enjoy mathematics and sciences, basic sciences. Once you have that, then it's really about perseverance and work ethic and being driven. This does not happen by accident. You don't fall into the field. It's not a natural gift that very many people have to absorb the amount of information and the diversity of fields that you're going to be studying and to assimilate that and to be able to use it in a productive way. It just takes a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease. So I would say the two fields, the two qualities are, one is innate, and that is just a level of intellectual capacity, and then the other is a work ethic. And I think with that, you can persevere and make it through any of the fields that we're discussing, but certainly those are core for medicine. If you go into clinical medicine, I think you have to have an aptitude to be communicating, to be able to communicate with people. If you go into academic medicine, your ability to communicate is still important, but perhaps not on the level of a one-on-one conversation. You have to be able to communicate in larger conversations at research symposia. You have to be able to communicate with your peers on a level of what they're talking about. But for clinical medicine, you just have to be able to talk to people and boil things down to their level. And that's really what the goal is to be able to do.
I have a question. So what does your day look like now in the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a lot of this actually. So, but you guys took Zoom to a whole different level. I'm used to doing a Zoom meeting with a one-on-one patient. I'm pretty good at that now, and I can gear and steer my 85-year-old patients on how to get their iPhone up and get a Zoom meeting going. But boy, this whole thing of breakout room, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you could do all that. So yeah, so March it was interesting. I was actually skiing in Colorado, and the mountain got shut down, and I was I'm the director of ambulatory cardiology for University Hospitals. So I'm on these conference calls trying to figure out what is our life going to look like. We have to shut down face-to-face visits, and this is a very foreign concept in medicine. If you're computer science, if you're in the sciences, doing these types of video conferences are very common. I think most people are doing them nowadays in a lot of fields. But in medicine is very hands-on. It's very interpersonal. It's very much sitting in a room across from another individual and talking about their issues that are very sensitive issues. So we very rapidly, in a course of 5 days, rediscovered how to do approximately 10,000 patient visits across university hospitals in the cardiology field. So our life in the pandemic has changed and evolved. In the first April and May, much like everybody else, the world shut down. I was sitting at home doing 300 patient visits a month, sitting on my computer, trying to open up multiple laptops where I had my patient charts and trying to interact with the patient and trying to keep everybody engaged and try to read their body language. And, a lot of medicine is involving trying to see body language. What's somebody concerned about? What are their fears? They may say one thing, but their body tells you something else. That's really hard to pick up on a computer screen. You don't see their fidgeting and their movement. So we went from almost 0 patient visits in the office. We were still in the hospital. We were still taking care of very sick patients. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, heart issues kind of are prevalent in about 50% of the patients. Maybe not clinically relevant, but some of them are very sick. So we were still in the hospital taking care of those patients. But we were trying to keep everybody distant, so we didn't want, it would be irresponsible to have people come to our office where there was a waiting room full of people to be seen. Obviously, sick people interacting with other sick people, interacting with doctors who are seeing sick people all day and therefore transmitting diseases. So we really try to shut that down. As of June, July, August, we have returned to some semblance of normal where we are seeing patients in the office. We are still seeing, obviously, patients in the hospital need to be seen. But we have become more intelligent in how we work. We keep people spaced out and spread apart. Our interactions with patients have been more isolated. The patient's family members aren't really coming to the hospital. They're not allowed to come to the hospital. So we've kind of taken on a different role. We have to be a little bit more empathic and understanding what that patient's going through because they don't have their family members and their support mechanisms there to deal with. So we're communicating more by telephone, talking to their families and interacting with people virtually to let them know what we've done and how their family members are doing. So it's been I think in medicine, we're very technologically adept at using new techniques in the cardiac cath lab, but we're not really necessarily computer savvy as most other fields are. And so I think it's forced the hand of a lot of people. I'm kind of that in-between generation. I have my partners who are 60 and 65 who couldn't tell you what Zoom was and still want no part of it. And the whole video conferencing was really kind of a foreign thing and trying to get their headset to work with the video. It was just a real hassle. And then we have all the younger partners who are in their 20s and 30s and 40s and the millennial generation, and they're very adept at this. And so they took off with this and probably never want to go back to the old way where they have to sit in an office and see patients. So it's been an interesting transition, as it is for everybody. But medicine has been obviously also hit just from the fact that we are exposed on a daily basis to COVID-19. And so it's kind of become a routine part of our lives at this point. Long-winded answer, sorry.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Next, we'll have Jyoti Mishra. She's from Chicago, and she's in the field of healthcare administration, and she attended the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. She majored in community health and minored in business, and her husband, Kyle, is also going to help give us some insight on business now.
Great, thank you so much. And that was a great introduction, and thank you everyone for staying on the line, and hopefully, we can give you some valuable information about business. And so we'll kind of just quickly go through a little intro on business and also some of our background, and then we can open it up for questions. But as it was mentioned, my name is Jyoti Mishra. I'm from the Chicago area, and my career path is in healthcare administration. And this is my husband, Kyle Tomlin. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, how are you guys? So I just actually got my MBA from the University of Chicago Booth. I graduated in June, and I'll actually be starting a role in consulting at PwC in October. Prior to that, I actually had 6 years of experience, mostly working kind of in the retail space. So worked across different functions, pricing, marketing, supply chain, at different retailers. So I worked at Target, Amazon, and then most recently in the entertainment industry at Warner Brothers. So that's kind of a quick bio of ourselves.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead actually a little bit more about my background, but before we kind of get into that, since we also have everyone kind of on the line, I just want to say I think it's so great that everyone is taking the time to do this and kind of explore different career paths, and thanks for everyone who set this up as well. But I also want to put a plug in there that, if you don't know exactly what you want to do in terms of your career, that's totally fine. I think everyone takes their own time to figure these things out. So I would encourage everyone to attend more things like this, do your own research, see if you can join clubs or do internships in different fields to really get a feel for what you enjoy. And to give everyone an example, you know, I have an older sister, and when she was 6 years old, she knew she wanted to be a doctor, and she went for it, she did it, and she's great. And I was the exact opposite, where I had no idea what I wanted to do and went to college as a bio major, you know, talked to more people, explored more things, and found out about healthcare administration. I didn't even know that existed, and actually changed my major. And so just want to put a plug in there too, that it's okay to kind of figure things out, and you don't have to know all and have all the answers right now. But anyway, so what is healthcare administration? Some of you might be wondering. You know, so we just heard about medicine, and healthcare administration is more of the business, operational, strategic part of healthcare. So I know Dr. Modi was just talking about, you know, during COVID, we had to, you know, a lot of people in across the country, a lot of organizations had to adapt and set up telemedicine. So, you know, a healthcare administrator might help with, you know, what is the software we're going to get to set this up? How much is this going to cost? Like, do we have, you know, what's the right price point for us? You know, do all the physicians have all the equipment they need in order to, you know, successfully have these telemedicine visits, you know, things like that. So that's just, I would say, a small part of it, but if you're in a more operational or administrative role, that might be part of what you do. So I view a lot of my job as kind of the intersection between business, which I really enjoy, and that leadership operational part, as well as in healthcare, just the having the patient care aspect to it. And I find that very rewarding. And you know, part of my history is I was an assistant manager at an OBGYN clinic. And so I thought that my job was well done if all of the providers had what they needed to have a smooth clinic, and if all my staff had what they needed to also support the providers and the patients. But anyways, to back up, so my education is I actually went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I majored in community health and minored in business. I then knew I definitely wanted to pursue healthcare administration, kind of figured that out in undergrad, and got my Master of Healthcare Administration at the University of Minnesota. From there, I moved out to Los Angeles, California, and worked at Kaiser Permanente for about 5 years, did what's called an administrative fellowship there, and then, as I mentioned, was an assistant manager for an OBGYN clinic. And now I currently moved back to Chicago with Kyle. And so I work for ECG Management Consultants. So I'm in healthcare consulting. And if anyone wants to know more about what consulting entails, we can feel free to ask during the Q&A. But I'll pause there and let Kyle talk about his background too.
So as I discussed previously, I have a lot of experience in the retail and consumer space. I won't go through all the different jobs I've had, because I think it'll take a little bit too much time. But quickly, like when I was at Target, my focus was on like pricing. At Amazon, I worked more as like a vendor manager, and that role involved marketing, supply chain, negotiations, like a lot of data analysis. So there's a lot of different things in business. And then when I was at Warner Brothers, I did trade marketing, which was basically the business-to-business marketing. How do we get different movies, Blu-rays and DVDs sold into main accounts like Target and Walmart and Best Buy. So it's similar to my role at Target with a lot of pricing. I'll dive a little bit more into my role at Amazon. So I started off there as like a brand specialist, vendor manager type role. So I worked with a large vendor. So I worked with Fitbit, which many of you might be aware is a wearable technology device. So I worked very closely with their sales team, and basically my job was to ensure that essentially that Amazon's Fitbit business was profitable. So worked through marketing. So worked with their sales team and internal data to understand like what marketing initiatives on the Amazon website were most profitable. And we pushed marketing dollars into there. Worked on a lot of supply chain stuff to it. So to ensure that when they were shipping product to us, it was getting to us in a timely manner. And also to ensure that we were not out of stock. So when you guys are, or maybe probably more your parents are going online and shopping at Amazon that there actually is product available for them to buy to optimize sales. Did a lot of negotiations as well. So even though I worked very closely with the outside vendor of Fitbit, I was an employee of Amazon, so negotiating with them to ensure that the Amazon business was profitable and we got the appropriate money and the correct costs to make that profitable. And what I really enjoyed about this role, and I think if one thing that you'll need to have a strong skill set in, you might really enjoy business, is if you have a strong interest in like data analysis. So a lot of times I had to really understand my business. We did weekly metrics and to understand, why the business was going up or down in certain areas, really dive into that, look at the data, and understand how to fix the business or really understand like how it's going well. So I think that's kind of a quick overview of my background.
Yeah. So actually, do you want to outline kind of what are the different areas you can kind of pursue within business?
Yeah, so obviously I was talking more about consumer, and Jyoti worked in like the healthcare side of business. But business is very broad. So there's many different things you can go into, such as accounting or finance. There's entrepreneurship if you want to start your own business. We both do consulting, which is working on different projects every 6 to 12 weeks for different clients. That's a great opportunity to really explore what you're interested in and get those different experiences. There's supply chain, marketing. A lot of what's really big these days, a lot of people are going into technology, which has a lot of those functions as well. But a lot of technology companies like Amazon or Google or Microsoft have a lot of like project or product management where essentially you're owning the product through its life cycle until you launch it. So owning like the marketing, the pricing, working with the engineering teams to make sure that those products have a very successful launch. So we just wanted to mention that even though we're talking more about specifics, business is very broad. And then at a really high level, I just want to mention, so business, I would say at a high level is you're driving strategy to ensure that your company is profitable and driving profitable revenue. So there's a lot of different functions that go into that, but at a high level, that's what you as a business person are trying to accomplish. And so I think you wanted to go into some of the skills.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I do want to give everyone time for questions. But in terms of skills needed, if you're interested in the business field, definitely if you're good at math, that's definitely great. Being very analytical, having good problem solving skills. You're probably going to do some data analysis to figure out, and make business decisions based on data that you have, and really make informed decisions, not just make decisions based on what you feel like, but you have the data to back it up. Good communication is very important, both written and verbal. There's a lot of communication. Working as a team and collaboration is also extremely important. Prioritization skills, you're probably going to have so much to do within a day and you can't do it all. So having good time management and being able to pick out, these things have to get done today. That's what I need to prioritize versus other things that could wait. Leadership is definitely very important, and leadership looks different. And for everyone, you might actually be a manager where you're a leader of a certain department, or it could be in small ways. Even if you're in high school and you're a leader of a club, things like that. That's a way to build some of those skills. But leadership is definitely important. And then one thing I wanted to highlight too is this. I'm sure a lot of you have already picked up on these skills, but being very proficient with Microsoft Word, PowerPoint for presentations, and Microsoft Excel is definitely really important. And that's going to help you in, school along the way anyway. And one I want to highlight is in Excel, if you do go into business, the more like shortcuts the more you know how to really work with Excel, I think definitely the better. So.
And then before we open it up for Q&A, I just want to quickly go through different education you need to become a business professional. So, I think overall, typically probably only need an undergraduate degree. And if you truly know you want to go into business, I would say try to pursue a business degree undergrad, but not all undergraduate programs or undergraduate schools offer business. A lot of people go into economics. But at the same time, I actually got an engineering degree undergrad. You don't need to have a business degree to go into business. There's plenty of people that have gotten degrees in math or engineering or even the liberal arts that if you can show that you're analytical and have a passion for business and communicate that through interviews, you can definitely get a job post-undergraduate, post-college in the business field. So it's not something you necessarily have to decide right now or right when you get to college that that's the where you want to go. And then there's also times where you might want to get a graduate degree. So I actually got my master's of business administration, my MBA, because I wanted to career switch and I wanted to get more knowledge and get more of that business background through school. And Josie, for example, got her master's in healthcare administration because she knew she really wanted to go into healthcare. And there are more specialized degrees like masters of finance or masters of accountancy. But I would say like something you have to think about more. Usually you get your MBA like 4 to 6 years post graduating from college. So say first now focus on your undergraduate degree, and you can later determine if you want to pursue an MBA or other postgraduate degree later if it fits best for you. So I think that kind of sums up our presentation, and we can open it up for some Q&A.
I had a question. What are like some classes or like clubs that you guys did in like high school to like learn about business or know that you like business?
Yeah. So should I start?
Go for it.
So thinking back to high school, I didn't know for sure that I was going to go into healthcare administration. But I do remember taking, I think we had a couple like elective classes. So I did take a business class and they went into kind of like the stock market and things like that, which isn't completely, related to what I'm doing right now. And I just kind of happened to take those, but you could definitely explore if you're interested in business, are there specific business related classes? If so, definitely pursue those. If not, I think, definitely focus on like the math, like data driven classes. Yeah. In terms of clubs, thinking back to high school, I don't remember that we had a specific business focused club, but I would say regardless of that, still get involved. I think it's great to do like some type of community service or volunteering club. I know there's things like National Honor Society. I know there's like so many different clubs you could join. What we were talking about in our breakout session is do a couple clubs, whatever you can manage within your time limit. Don't over stretch yourself, but doing a couple clubs that are more like professional oriented, but also do a couple clubs that are more of what you're passionate about, because one thing that colleges, grad schools, and even post-grad school jobs, what they're looking for is, what are you bringing to the table? There's tons of people who are good at math or good at business or good at whatever, but what do you bring? And so I know we talked about in the breakout session too, when I was in college, I joined something called Future Healthcare Executives, which was very, professional oriented, and a couple other clubs like that. I also led a Bollywood dance team, which was super fun. I was very passionate about it. We went on competitions all around the country. And so that taught me so much about leadership. And since I'm interested in business, it was almost running my own little mini business, trying to figure out, each aspect, managing the team is like managing a little department kind of. And I actually spoke about that during grad school interviews and even post-grad interviews, and that really helped me stand apart. So I would say, of course, pursue some things that are directly related, but also what you're passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, I would just echo that. I don't think my high school, if I remember correctly, had very many business classes. And so, my focus was just to get to like the best school I could get into, was to just take those APs and honors classes. And I think that really shows the schools, if you want to get into a top end business school or just a top end school in general, that you can be successful, that you're pushing yourself and you're taking those classes and you're doing well in those. And then kind of same with clubs. I don't know if we might, I think we might have had like one business club that I was part of where you kind of did some Excel stuff and some other things. I don't remember what it was called. I think I was part of that, but just getting involved as however you can is just the best way to do it. But for me, I knew I actually went into engineering, so I didn't know right away I was interested in business, but throughout time, like I really enjoyed math. I really enjoyed problem solving. I like classes where you like dove into data and like Excel. So I think that's how I really knew that, business was what I wanted to go into.
What is your regular day like?
Yeah, good question.
You want to go?
Sure. So I'll go through a day in my previous job and then what I currently do real quickly. So my previous job, I was an assistant department administrator at an OBGYN clinic. I can't remember if I explained that in the breakout session or not, or if it was this session, but essentially that's obstetrics, which is pregnant patients, and gynecology, which is women's health. So my day-to-day job it looked different every single day, because, you know, I could have a smooth day where everyone's clinic is running very smoothly and things are going well, and I'm doing a lot of like looking at our budget or making strategic decisions, or hey, we have to figure out, you know, our supply chain is messed up and we need to, you know, figure those things out. And more often than not, I was running around like crazy because things were going wrong. So, you know, maybe there's a patient who had to wait a really long time for their doctor and they're very upset about it. So, you know, kind of talking to them, understanding what happened, later figuring out, you know, what caused this, how can we prevent this from happening in the future, to, you know, there's a toilet overflowing on the 3rd floor and, you know, I got to go figure out, you call someone to fix it and that type of thing. So that job definitely changed day to day, and also managing staff. So I would do everything from the hiring to the coaching to the even, you know, unfortunately, sometimes the firing of staff, working a lot with physicians all the time, working with them every single day, making decisions like in partnership with them. Anyway, so that's the kind of operational job I had. I currently am a healthcare consultant. So prior to COVID, usually I would be traveling. So I would fly, actually my first project was out in Dallas. So every week I would essentially fly to Dallas on Monday. I would work with our clients on projects throughout the week, and I would fly home on Thursday and then go into the office on Friday. And so that involves a lot of meeting with our clients, shadowing in the clinics, working with doctors, nurses, et cetera.
So I'll try to go. I haven't started my post-MBA job in consulting, so I'll talk about my job quickly at Warner Brothers that I had previously. So a lot of my day-to-day in that job was, you know, working with our sales team to ensure that like the promotions and the movies that we sold into the retail accounts were profitable and we had the most optimal prices. And then also just in ensuring like providing them approvals, and also just, you know, diving into a lot of data to ensure like how can we improve our promotions and our pricing going forward to optimize our business and drive as much revenue and gross margin and profitability as possible. And I also work closely with our brand marketing team to understand different marketing initiatives that we could put into place to basically effectively, you know, increase the sales of our movies that we were selling into the main account. So a day-to-day, it was probably half my day was like meetings and half my day was at my desk doing analysis or talking to people or, you know, just figuring things out. So I know it's kind of like a high level, but it gives you an idea of like what the day in the life of someone is.
Okay, well, I just have like one like quick like fun question. So since you worked at like Warner Brothers, like what were some of the movies that you like worked with, or was it like that, or?
So I took over. So I like worked with all the movies technically because I was just trying to sell in like Blu-ray and DVD. But like we had a theatrical like marketing team that like they owned specific movies when they like came out in theaters and marketing those. But a really fun fact is like actually I worked just outside the Warner Brothers lot, so I was able to like walk on the lot, and a few times I saw people filming. I actually saw George Clooney once on the elevator, so that was really cool. And before the movies came out, they had a couple theaters on the lot, so I was able to bring Jyoti a few times, and we actually got to see a few movies. So I think some of my favorites were, I'm trying to think back, Wonder Woman was like a really great movie. Really enjoyed that. What other movies did we see?
Was it Ocean's 8?
But yeah, Ocean's 8 was like a really good movie. Really enjoyed that. But like I was able, actually like during work, because it was like my job to know like what the movies were about, their genres and everything. I actually got to see every movie before it came out. So that was a really cool part of the job.
That's so cool. Okay, thank you guys so much for speaking. We're going to go to last but not least, Swati Auntie for technology.
Sure, thank you, Saranya. I will share my screen and we can quickly go over. Not take a lot of time. We discussed a lot, and I think Rajiv covered a lot of engineering. So I thought maybe I don't need to go, but I can just quickly go over this engineering technology. So I'm Swati Patnaik. I'm from Chicago. I live in Chicago suburbs. Technically, I'm an engineer, and the trainings and education, I would say, I came from my electrical engineering background. So I agree with Kyle that you don't need to start with what you end up in your career. So I came from electrical engineering, and then there was a lot of I would say a family thing that I have sort of lot of inclination towards IT, information technology. So I got trained into information technology and got into a service company as an intern. And I would say the training there was an eye opener when I went into this corporate world. The training that they give you, starting from the job specific training to the etiquettes, to the communication, how to talk to a customer, and you guys get it early on in schools and undergrads. For me, that knowledge I still carry. So that training was very important, the education that I got there. The skills for technology job, I wouldn't say you need to be learning one technology to be a tech savvy. I started with C++ and Java, and now you guys will say, oh, what's that? So you need to have the curiosity, the passion to learn, and you need to be asking that question of how this thing work, and then you will see things open up. You will be asking that question, and you move on and find answers to your question. And the answers are readily available. This world of Google, answers are available. You just need to ask those questions. I work as a product owner in United Airlines. When I say product owner, it's not the cool products that Rajiv showed, like Caterpillar trucks or Tesla. It's just software products. These are digital products, but you need to have the sense of what your customer needs and what needs to be delivered to the customer. You need to have the right balance. That's what I do. It's a techno business role right now, but I started as a developer, as I said, and I know what a developer goes through, and I have been a mentor to developers as technical manager. So I know the pulse from the development, and I know the business now. So it's a good balance. It evolves. I'm not a product owner from the beginning, right? So that balance is really important. When you have the technology sense, when the customer asks for something, you know it's feasible or not, and that's the strength that I carry. So whatever you learn, it's the steps towards what you want to be in your career. So that's how my job goes. When you ask me what are my perks in my job, as I said, I'm at United Airlines, so I get to travel a lot if there are space available. It's adventure. But the real perk of being in technology, I think I mentioned that in the breakout session too, that you feel young because every day you are learning something new. You look at okay, I feel like, oh, I'm an expert in enterprise solutions. And then the next day somebody asks, oh, we are going cloud. Do you know about RPA? Do you know automation? I'm like, okay, I need to start over. So it's kind of everyday learning. So it's not stagnant. You share a lot with the world, and you learn a lot from the world. So that's the biggest perk with technology. A typical day, I saw a lot of you asking that question. I'm answering in advance. So I, like I said, I work with digital products, right? So I do a lot of talking. So I talk to the business customers who actually will be using the product, otherwise it will be stale. I talk to the stakeholders who've paid for the product, and they want the right value for money. And then I go talk to the development team on how things will be done and what needs to be done. The other time, then when I'm not talking, I'll be building a lot of timelines for the projects. I would be helping this development team too, knowing that I'm from the technology background. I have that niche for always trying those things with the developers. So I do that too. And at the end of the day, I'm a mom, so I need to have that balance of work and life. And even though the technology is sometimes, oh, I need to get this done today, you have to switch it off and move on to be the mom of two nerdy kids. And I would say at the end of the day, whether you take technology or business or medical and other, I think all the presenters will agree with me that at the end of the day, you need to be happy. You need to see yourself not hating your job and not a depressing Sunday. Wake up in the morning and you have that energy to go into work and build something new. So that's my advice. I'll open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing.
Swati, this is Deepak. With this COVID-19, the COVID situation going on now, the airline, the rules are changing every day. Kind of, there is a government regulations and there is a demand in the market. You know, you have to adjust, and you know, the constantly your business team is making decisions to change the to compete to the market. How much of load that you are taking on your team to change the software that you are using currently, to change all these pricings and all that? If you could, give the background, what's the pressure like in your team?
Yeah. So I work in the finance area. So refunds is one example that I can give you, that we had customer service agents who were taking maybe 20 refunds a day, and that shoot up to 20,000. So no way those customer agents can manage that. It was crashing, and we had so many pendings. And we used a term called scrappy these days, that we don't need to go through the project management life cycle to get these things done. That's good and bad. In the corporate and industry, when you are a developer, you don't understand why these things take so long for the money to be approved. And in this case, the money was like, okay, do something and get this done. So we implemented automation there. So we have bots who are taking those refunds. So 90% of the time, the refunds do not need to be questioned. And all the airlines, they came up with a policy that there is no question refunds during this COVID situation. We don't need to ask a lot of questions. We don't need to ask for money. It's just either refund or give them United cards. So that's all the bot did. So business users made that decision of these are the criterias, but technology enabled them to do that job. So that's one example of how this pandemic affected us.
Yeah, thank you, Swati. You brought a point called bot. So I want all the kids to learn. Those who are aspiring the engineering and mostly in software, try to Google that and learn what's bot doing in the engineering.
Definitely, and you can ask me.
Yeah, and yes, how that Swati will be helping you. Yes.
Okay, so we have time for one more question for Swati.
Why did you go into electrical engineering, and how long did you do it before you switched?
So when I went for electrical, when I had a choice to go into engineering, electrical was the only choice. So I went for it. I wanted to be an engineer, and I started. And then by the end of second year, I knew it's not for me. So I tried looking out, and that time my siblings were all into IT, and I don't know if you guys understand Y2K, but that was the time when my sister was working there, and she gives me all this adventures of, on the midnight of 2000, the lights may not switch on in the whole of US, and it was fascinating. It was clear choice for me. I want to go into this information technology corporate world than the transformers and grids. So I switched.
Okay, so that's the end of our college career fair. We will definitely do more of these in the future. Let's just give a round of applause for our amazing speakers. Just want to thank them for their cooperation with everything going on and having wonderful presentations. So
and all the coordinators, you did wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also learned from you people a lot, like to use the breakout room. I never used it before. That was fun. Yeah.
new
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
technology for us as well. So
I also learned about other career options. If I have more time in the life, I will go for it. Yeah.
okay.
That's
So
nice.
right now we're gonna send out a few forms. So right now the link I just sent is the youth interest form for OSA Youth. We would encourage everyone to join. It's where we coordinate our events for our own youth, and you can get firsthand, what do you call it, reminded about these events. So I'll take some time for everyone to fill that out.